All right, hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar, More Than Self is Needed for Self-Care. Whether you're joining us live or for the recorded version, we appreciate you taking the time out of your really busy day to join us for an hour or so of learning together about self-care. So it looks like we have a good number of teachers with us today, some counselors. We've really got kind of a good smattering of things and lots of others. So if you are an other, we love to hear from you. So if you can put your role in the chat box, that would be helpful for us to know, and we'll kind of keep track of those. Thanks, everybody, and welcome again. So my name is Jennifer Sanderlin. I'm the Education Partnerships Development Manager at Committee for Children. For anyone who's just listening today, I have medium length blonde hair, I have black rimmed glasses on, and I'm wearing a black sweater. So I'll be your host for today's webinar. Just briefly, in my work, I get to work with partner to support schools, districts, nonprofit organizations, and state leaders around bullying prevention, child protection, and of course, social emotional learning efforts. I'm fortunate to have been in education for a little over 25 years now. And in fact, I'm celebrating 10 years of those years at Committee for Children here just this week. So I'll share a little bit more about Committee for Children in just a moment. But before I do, I just want to share a really quick story. One of my first presentations to a group of educators about social emotional learning was to a group of early learning teachers in Middle Tennessee. Shout out to Tennessee, folks. And after a long and winding drive through some beautiful rolling hills, I get to the district building. I put my large Post-it notes up on the wall and markers on the table. I think I even had candy on the table. I unpack the materials and I'm ready to go. Then I go to set up my PowerPoint, turn on the computer, and the IT person at the time said it was the blue screen of death. So that was definitely not what I wanted to hear at that time. And thankfully, I took a brief moment to scream in my head, and then I begged the hero of the IT person to help, and together we found a workaround. So who knew I was going to need all those social emotional skills before I even started my talk that day? But the truth is that whether it's technology or pretty much anything else in life, that we rely on our social emotional competence in nearly every situation, maybe even especially with tech problems. So if you experience any technical trouble today, please try the scream inside your head for a moment. No, I'm just kidding. But do try logging out and back in, and we won't sweat it, and we'll make sure that you get the recording if anything goes wrong. And if we have a few glitches here and there on our end, we hope that you won't sweat it either. So sound good? I wish I could see your faces and see how many people have had that exact thing happen to them. So along with the recording, I'll just remind everybody who didn't hear at the beginning that you will also get a copy of the presentation slides as well as certificate of attendance early next week or so. And then at last, if you would please just feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat box anytime. We'll answer what we can along the way, and we'll save time for all the other questions at the end. So with that, let's just a quick look at our presentation. We're going to do the introductions, talk just a little bit about meaningful partnerships that support mental health in schools, and then we'll go into our feature presentation of More Than Self is Needed for Self-Care, have some Q&A, and I will share some resources at the end. So for all of you newcomers to our webinars, a special welcome to you. Although whether you're a repeat participant, big thank you to you too. Many of you know us by our research-based programs called Second Step, and you don't always know that it's created by Committee for Children. We are a nonprofit organization based in Seattle, Washington since 1979 with a vision of safe children thriving in a just and peaceful world. With more than 40 years of work toward our mission to foster the safety and well-being of children through social emotional learning and development, we positively impact 24.4 million children each year in all 50 states and around the world. We invite you to explore more about Committee for Children, our advocacy work, and the state and federal level, and our commitment to equity and more by visiting our website, cfchildren.org. As I mentioned, Committee for Children is best known for Second Step, for early learning, elementary and middle school that represent a holistic and child-centered approach to building more supportive communities for every child through social emotional learning, child protection, and bullying prevention. And as you can see in this graphic, the child is in the center, and we've got all of our different programming that surrounds the child there. It also includes out-of-school time programs for K through 5. Our social emotional learning for adults program is in, and excitingly, we have a high school program in development. So if you're interested in any of our programs and want to get in-depth look at any of those, please just register in the same place that you found this one at secondstep.org/webinars, and I'll leave you with that URL at the end of our time today. So one last slide before we dive in and I introduce you to our featured speaker today, our special guest. One question you might be wondering is, so as it relates to this webinar and in general, why would Committee for Children focus on educator wellness and well-being when our specialty is social emotional learning and life skills and prevention programs? Well, first and foremost, our experience and our feedback from our Second Step schools and districts really tells us firsthand that mental health and teacher well-being is incredibly important and really quite critical right now. We have over 43,000 schools, so you can imagine how much feedback that really is from district and school leaders and individual teachers and counselors. We hear from every day about their day-to-day challenges, and really in the last few years especially. So also, as an organization that specializes in social emotional learning, our research and program development teams have seen in research and in practice, as I mentioned, how SEL impacts mental health and how SEL skills can help mitigate and support mental health challenges, and vice versa. We know that mental health and well-being of teachers and students can impact how well students can develop their social emotional skills and competencies. So, and last, I really don't have to tell you, most likely, that the mental health headlines and research around student and educator mental health, looking at from the big picture, is terribly concerning. So that is, anecdotally to me, and I would also guess to you that when you hear those headlines, or read those research briefs, when we have high empathy, which I would guess is a lot of you, the hardest part is not really being able to do anything about it. That really can weigh us down. As a former teacher way back when, I also know that the absolute hardest thing is when you don't feel 100% in a profession where you have to bring your A game. It really is something that's essential. So the big question is what to do. So for all of you who are serving and leading in educators in schools, and all of you who are in the trenches yourselves, we're really so fortunate today to partner with an amazing organization and thoughtful leader in this field to help us figure out what we can do to support ourselves in this journey, in this space and time, to bring awareness, strategies, and resources for self-care to support educators' mental health in a way that really empowers and doesn't burden. So with that, I'm so grateful and so happy. It is my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker, Jeremiah Aha from Wellness Together School Mental Health and HearYou.org. We'll hear a little bit more from Jeremiah, but briefly, Wellness Together is a national nonprofit that provides school-based mental health services since 2016. Their clinicians are in schools and colleges, working alongside staff to support students, schools to really help them succeed. And HearYou.org was created out of seeing the need firsthand to support entire school communities, serving individuals, families, including educators and school staff. So welcome, Jeremiah, thank you so much for being here. It's so nice to see you again. It's been a pleasure to work together getting ready for this webinar. I'm very much looking forward to your presentation and learning from your experience and your expertise. But before we get started, I just want to have a chance for you to share a little bit about your work. So if you would, please just tell us about Wellness Together, hearyou.org, and yourself and how you came to be involved.
You got it. Thanks so much, Jennifer, for the work that you and Committee for Children are doing. Just really glad to be here, whether this finds you morning, afternoon, or evening on a recording or somewhere across around the world. Really welcome, and just super grateful to be here and to partner together in this work. As you mentioned there on that last slide, healthy educators equals healthy school communities. And so it's great to be able to be here with you all. Thanks so much. I got a special shout out for the resource teacher out of Honolulu. You know who you are. Special shout out to you. Aloha. So glad you're here. If you want to follow suit, I won't call them out by name, but throw in the chat whereabouts in the world this is finding you if you're joining us live here. But to answer your question, Jennifer, so Wellness Together, we are a national nonprofit. We are based in Northern California, in the capital city of Sacramento. Shout out to the West Coast here, because I know Committee for Children, you're up north from us, Jennifer.
Yeah, we agree.
Yeah, there you go. Shout out to Oklahoma. I see some folks chiming in here. So we're a national nonprofit, 501c3. We turn 7 years old next month. And we really grew out of the soil of education. Our founder and CEO was a school counselor. Shout out to school counselors. Shout out to Pennsylvania. There in East Coast. School counselor in the early 2000s. And I don't know how long, you've been a school counselor, been in education, but in the early 2000s, really, especially in California, but much before a lot of the maybe ed code or legislation has changed in your state, wherever this finds you, caseloads out here were 700, 800 to 1 students to school counselors, which is, I think, the definition of impossible to be able to really support, all facets of the student, right? And so he began a program within a school district. And as we know, school leaders talk to school leaders. So it very quickly went to a nonprofit model, and now have been able to serve and provide access to over 116,000, pre-K to 12 students, over 20,000 college students, and even 33,000 plus and counting for educators. What that looks like real quick practically is we provide a mental health specialist right on campus, licensed eligible or licensed therapist right there on campus to work alongside your school counselors, school staff. Maybe there's a coordination of services team, whatever the school support team looks like, the student support team, we partner with you all to supplement and not supplant any of the great programs that are already going on. We get a chance to provide free weekly therapy, evidence-based interventions to students and families without any requirements for Medicaid, without any requirements for private insurance. And if you want to know more, have a QR code you can click a little bit later. And as you mentioned, Jennifer, really seeing the need for educators. Coincidentally, in March 2020, it was formally kind of branded as hearyou.org. But from close to the beginning, we had director of student supports or HR directors, from district offices say, this has gone well with our students. We have a teacher that's going through a tough time. Can we have a separate MOU with you to provide, some sessions for this teacher? We really want to support them. Our EAP isn't great. They're not calling us back, or there's a long wait. You all get education. You all understand the unique challenges. Can we partner with you? And we said, absolutely. Well, March of 2020, it reached a point where we had to really kind of make a separate division. It's still all of our same team. And very coincidentally, when the world shut down because of our clinical licenses throughout California and New York, as well as where students and other states coming on board this year, Texas, Oregon, Tennessee, any others, we're able to provide counseling to educators and have kind of formal partnerships with school districts to have an educator mental health program, and they can really access that timely, it's online, and it's confidential, which is really important, especially when you're dealing with kind of a workplace environment, right? So that's the short answer, Jennifer.
Well, that's a lot. So I'm glad that you could fit that into a short answer. That's a really interesting trajectory, honestly, and a very organic way to bring those resources. I love how it sort of fit right at the time that the world needed it the most. And now you can develop it further. It was something that was very likely in terms of hearyou.org needed long before that. So that's really exciting. So speaking of resources, one of the things I know in my experience here at Committee for Children as districts and schools is this: they don't often know how they can access resources like these, or that it's really even possible. So that often means funding. I heard you say a little bit of no cost. Can you share some of the ways that that happens, or how your services are contracted and funding that might be available for this kind of thing outside of what you're doing, if you know?
Sure can. So about 80% of our funding, as a nonprofit, it's fee for service. So we have direct MOUs with school districts, with county offices of education, and we are able to, they are able to use a number of different funding sources. And could look like here in California, it's the local control and accountability plan. If there's a specific pot of resources that schools are able to access to meet some of their priorities, some of their strategic plans. So that is one. Site funds is another that some principals use because they really see the firsthand need. And we've actually had principals that started with us just 1 or 2 days a week, and now throughout the entire district, 4 days a week, where they're at their school sites. So that is a way. And then, one of the I won't say the benefits of a pandemic, but really one of the things that came out of that was other streams of funding. So ESSER 1, ESSER 2, CARES Act, ARPA, some others, Title IV funds. Some special ed directors really can see the benefit and the upside of having a tier 3 or a tier 2 intervention, if you're familiar with multi-tier system of supports for you all. Able to really have a time where maybe the student doesn't need to be assessed for special education. That timely and costly assessment process to get an IEP, maybe what they need is about 12 weeks, kind of short-term evidence-based interventions to get some coping skills, to understand, some of their challenges, some emotional identification, and then they don't have to kind of enter into that process. So Title IV funds is one of those, and whatever that can look like within your state, within your county. Again, reach out to us. wellnesstogether.org is a great way to get connected. In the upper right, you'll see a Get Started or Learn More. And we have our partnerships team that is more than familiar with having those kinds of conversations to get creative. Lastly, because I mentioned 80%, about 20% is grants, and that's from usually corporations. And one of those, actually, we've been lucky to be really fortunate to be the lead partner on Blue Shield of California's signature initiative on a historic amount of funding, $10 million to support student mental health. And so we had the absolute privilege of walking into a principal's office and saying, hey, nice to meet you. We want to be able to offer, the district has said you would be a great site for this. There's a high level of need here. We want to offer minimum 3 years, up to 5. Thankful to say it's been, going on 5 years here.
Yeah.
And Blue Shield has covered the cost for this. And so that is a way as well. So if you know of other corporations or other, philanthropy foundations there in your community that are looking to make an impact and not just, well, I won't contrast it with anything, just looking to make an impact in the area of education. We've had that as well with grants for educator mental health as well. So that is an area we could explore with you. And that is, the way that funding is happening. But to the student and to the family, oftentimes with our formal partnerships for educator mental health, there's no cost to them. It is the district, county office, or some other agency that we have an agreement with.
That's wonderful. Wow. You really could get creative right now. I think there are a lot of philanthropies out there that want to make a difference. And I'm so glad to hear that you work with folks. We do the same thing, Committee for Children. We're always looking for ways to help people to find the resources that they need and to access the second step programs. And so thank you for sharing that. One last question, and then we're going to dive right into your topic. This one I just threw in there because I wanted to know. So since we specialize in social emotional learning and life skills, we like to think of SEL competencies, social emotional competencies, the self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, or relationship skills as superpowers. So I wanted to ask you, which one would you say is your superpower, Jeremiah?
So it's funny you asked that, especially in that way. I don't know, some 10 years ago when I first put up my LinkedIn bio, I actually had on there, superpower is relationship building.
Ah,
And so I love the language. It really can be used as that for, to impact in a positive way that, the world around us. And so I'm formally trained as a therapist, so I hope I have a little bit of a knack,
I
for
hope
that.
so.
But really, people are incredible. Relationships, as we'll talk about, today, are so life-giving, quite literally, able to impact our lives to the point to where we have decreased risk for chronic diseases, for a longer lifespan. Relationships are everything. So I would say the relational aspect, love connecting, over a meal or from a stage or, from camera to wherever this finds you at your school site or at your home. If this is like a, maybe a PD day at home or something like that. That's the one I would choose. All are great though. No shade to anyone else who
Right.
doesn't have that one.
Yes, awesome. I would say that mine is the same. Relationship skills would have been mine too. If you have been kind of noodling on that and on the other side of our computer screens, all of you that are out there, I would love for you to share your superpower in the chat box. So self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision making, and relationship skills. So with that, I'd love to toss the baton over to you. It's time for us to hear from Jeremiah on the topic for today. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat box, and I'll hand it over to you now.
It's so fitting that the handful of people now that it's growing that have put in, what their superpower is at their relationship building. That's a little on the nose, y'all. That really is. So of course it is. You're the ones that are engaging there in the chat. But yes, I want to second Jennifer's invitation. Throw your superpower there in the chat. Thanks so much for all those that are putting that in there. Shout out to Cape Cod. Shout out to Erie counties there in nearby Franklin, Pennsylvania. So glad that you're here. Shout out to Rhode Island as well. Big East Coast representing. I love it. All right, well, let's dive in. We have a little bit of time together, and this is definitely could be a whole, semester's worth of material we're going to cover. Try not to go too fast. My name is Jeremiah Aha. I serve as Director of Partnerships here with Wellness Together School Mental Health. So glad to be here with you. We're a nonprofit. There on the left, those three words, we want to increase mental health awareness, mental health advocacy, mental health access. National nonprofit, I mentioned, we already kind of went over this aspect, but if you want to snap a picture of that QR code, take you to our website, find out more. There's a free PDF on there to understand a little bit more in detail what the program can look like. School-based mental health services, pre-K all the way to university, and would love to be able to have, kind of this picture over here on the left to be an extension of your school site staff. Bulk of our training happens within education, and so we understand the unique environment that it is. Plenty of great agencies and organizations understand education, and plenty of great agencies and organizations understand mental health. And we'd like to think that we are one of the leaders in that space, especially since through funding, we're able to come under a FERPA umbrella, which as educators, you know what that means. We can say names, we can talk general details under a HIPAA umbrella, HIPAA compliance and confidentiality. If you said, hey, how's my student doing? As a mental health specialist, if I'm on your campus, that's how I started out. I have to say, I can't confirm or deny, I know that student. And I'm late, got to go to the next site. Not very helpful. We want to be there with you as a team supporting those students. So visit our website there to learn more. There's that very often used pyramid there of interventions, and we supply all tiers of those there. We mentioned hearyou.org already, educator mental health as well. You've probably heard plenty of ads on those podcasts or elsewhere that there's venture-backed companies looking to make a substantial return on their investments, and educator mental health is not for profit. So as a nonprofit, we offer about half the cost of the state's average rate and are able to have, again, that unique training all online. Reach out to us and we can be an extension and, dare I say, an improvement of your EAP. Last thing, this is just an invitation. I know I'm going quickly, but I think this is very important to highlight, and that is the free resource. The other two come with an agreement with the school district or with your school site or whatever the funding system looks like there within your school community. This is a free resource available nationwide and beyond. It's actually gone international. It's called Mind Out Loud. We're just turning 2 years old here in a couple of months. the youth-led mental health movement. This is a platform to amplify the student voice, and I want to invite you to a couple of events. It began in 2021 as an event, and we're having a third annual event on April 27th. So go ahead and click, take a picture of that QR code. You'll be able to register a free online event. We're really geared towards 13 years and older, even to transition age youth, as we have college and college age individuals supporting us. And it's a way to give them leadership opportunities, mental health awareness, mental health advocacy opportunities there on their campus. The first year we started, in a very short period of time, we had a response of 3,800 plus students in attendance. Over a third of the US joined us, 5 countries. Really great positive feedback. That's 9.5 out of 10 stars over there if we were a restaurant on Yelp. I know it only goes to 5 stars. And we even had 67 watch parties. And as we know, not every student, not every school site has maybe the resources or the access to a facility to display the event, to show the event, have students participate. So we said, hey, if you can maybe have a space on a different day where students could gather, or maybe the students that don't have access to Wi-Fi and a device could gather in the counseling center after school. You tell us how many students are there, we'll send the pizza. And there was a lot of pizza sent out across the US for the past couple of years. We had 67 nationwide watch parties a year ago. On the left, there's a few of our guests, a few notable names. Don't have time to highlight them all, but I will highlight one of my favorite, and that was Tony Hale. Shout out to Mysterious Benedict Society fans. If you're out there, throw in the chat. I want to hear it. Who's a fan of Mysterious Benedict Society, Arrested Development, or he was also the voice of Forky in Toy Story 4. He has a great kids show on Netflix right now. But anyway, that was great to get to hear just their mental health journey. Again, a free event, free monthly workshops. Here's some things. Make sure to check it out. We want to be able to support your students. There's not a club aspect to it, but we want to be a resource maybe to the on-campus mental health clubs that you have. An event happening actually tomorrow. You're invited to that as well. It's free, online, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time. Again, Mind Out Loud, we're partnering with Speaks to Inspire for a workshop there to understand how to decrease mental health stigma. There's some of our student directors. We have 30 of them across the US. It's super exciting to see the work that they are doing. They launched a podcast. You can check that out. And it's going to be great. Thank you to my teammate, Alex. Appreciate her letting me know. Tonight's the 11th. The 11th's tonight, not tomorrow. So tonight, feel free to register. It's a free event. We'll record it. So if it's too late notice, I understand. Available on our YouTube channel. And you can follow us on social as our students are doing incredible work there. Take a breath. I'm going to take a sip. And we're going to jump in. More than self is needed for self-care. You've probably seen Facebook posts, Instagram posts, TikTok posts, really shaming you into taking care of yourself into 2023. And I'm with that to a point, right? I do absolutely agree we do need to take care of ourselves. But if you're having any of that should type language, I should be better, I should have been doing this, stop shooting on yourself. If I can say that, I know it's a family show. It's not helpful. Shame has a very short shelf life. It's helpful maybe to a point, but afterwards, we don't need to feel guilty or shameful about it. This is a way to offer you just a list of tools for you, which I admit is not maybe if we had more time, it's a better way to go for it, right? To have a kind of rhythms and a cadence and even kind of a rituals in your life to make sure that you're taking good care of yourself. There's only going to be one of you. You might have this kind of a talk with your students there in the counseling office or there in your classroom or, whatever it might look like as you're maybe disciplining a student there in the AP's office. And you want to say, hey, it's just you. There's only one of you. You're valuable. You're the most irreplaceable resource on earth. And I want you to hear that for you as an educator, for you that supports students. And whatever your role is, we only get one of you. I don't want to call out folks by name because I'm not too familiar with the culture here, but I'm close to it. I want to call folks out by name and say, hey, there's only ever going to be one of you. Let's say this, individual from Honolulu, we only get one of you. Individual from Franklin, PA, we're only going to get one of you. From Rhode Island, from some other ones, Oklahoma, we're only going to get one of you. So we need for you to take care of yourself. Yes, for your students, but even more so for you. You are irreplaceable. You're non-renewable. You're the most precious resource on earth. Not precious like kittens. Maybe if that's your thing, great. I'm more of a dog person, and that's fine. Hope I didn't just divide the crowd there. But precious as in rare and unique. We only get one of you. All right. So I want you to also view this through the lens of this is an issue of occupational hazard. We need for you to take care of yourself. We need for you to be healthy, not just for your students, your classrooms, your school communities, but also for you, because you are absolutely worth that. You are worth that. And so with that and all of these things, if you're like, okay, yes, I'm into it. I'm ready. He's got me fired up. Hold on there. Start small. Start small. I heard the expression recently, it's not going to do us any good to boil the ocean here. Don't set out to make these huge, life-altering changes tonight. Don't go out and buy all the journals and all the things, all the pens, all the health supplements and all the workout material and all the books and all the podcasts. Just make some small, maybe one, maybe two. And I know as educators, you're overachievers. 3 maybe, but just 1 or 2. Start small. As a trained therapist, I can share with you, I won't go into all the research, but as a trained therapist, when we can make a commitment to ourselves and then make good on it, that dopamine just kind of floods our brain for a second. And we kind of tell ourselves, yes, I can do it. I can trust myself to make these changes. That has impacts in other areas of our life. When we make these commitments to ourselves and it doesn't happen, we're setting ourselves up for a lot of disappointment, maybe even resentment. Start small and you can succeed and build on that. Shout out to James Clear and his book, Atomic Habits. Would recommend that. I thought I had a copy. I was going to show it. I think it's at home. Atomic Habits is a great book. And maybe that's the only book you read this year. That would be a good one. Maybe it's on Audible. But take a peek at that one. That can be really, really great on small changes over time, making a huge difference. So start small, okay? So there's a cost to caring, especially over these past 3 years. We've seen that your job description went into areas that you never even dreamed of in training. And that's taken a toll on you. And that doesn't mean you're inadequate. That doesn't mean you're ill-equipped. It doesn't mean you weren't properly trained. That means you're a human being, that you've been maybe a little bit more tired, a little bit more irritable, maybe a little bit more sad. Maybe it's been tough to sleep. Maybe your eating patterns have been off a little bit. Maybe you've had some other type of physiological effects. It's because this takes a toll on us. And especially that last few years, you likely have been navigating how to care for those within your home, whether you're a parent or a roommate or you have family members living with you, and also trying to lead students. It is tough to not only be the pilot through these storms, but also the passenger, because neither one of those folks have known where we're going to go this past few years. And it's okay that it's been tough. There's a cost to that. In fact, to fall in line with Dr. Mathieu here, a trauma scholar, he writes, the expectation that we can be immersed in the suffering and loss daily and not be touched by it is as unrealistic as expecting to walk through water without getting wet. It's just flat out unrealistic. The way that we deal with loss shapes our capacity to be present to life more than anything else. The way we protect ourselves from loss may be the way in which we distance ourselves from life. We're kind of avoiding some of that pain. I would encourage you to avoid avoiding. We burn out not because we don't care, but because we don't grieve. We don't allow ourselves to be a human being, adding my commentary here. We aren't allowing ourselves to be a human being. We burn out because we're allowed our hearts to become so filled with loss, we have no room left to care. There's a cost to this. I'm so glad that you're here, whether it be live or if you're watching this on a recording some months, weeks, years into the future, because there's a cost to this. And know that's because you have limitations. You're a human being just like those that you lead. And this time is important for us. Maybe you've heard it called vicarious trauma or vicarious suffering or compassion fatigue. It's feeling overwhelmed, whether it be mentally, emotionally, or physically, by caring for students or for parents or for your staff, if you're an administrator at a district level or a site level. The best way to deal with this is early recognition, the absolute best way. And working with your students, as great as Second Step and Committee for Children is in providing interventions for you, they're doing incredible work, and they have for some time now, as Jennifer has shared with me over these past few months. The most valuable tool that you have in your toolbox is you, because we can't replace you. We can't replace you. So we need to take care of ourselves. So the ABCs, let's bring it a little bit to basics as we talk about more than just self is needed for self-care. Yes to yoga, yes to exercise, yes to bath bombs, yes to, things maybe improving some aspects of our physical body, all of that. Yes, and this right here. So the ABCs. First is awareness, as I mentioned. The first step is recognizing this. It's becoming aware. But there is so much. Maybe even that walkie-talkie has gone off 4 times already since this started. And there's emails coming through, and maybe someone, a student has knocked on your door, or your assistant has mentioned that so-and-so is here for the meeting, or the parents, the list goes on and on and on, let alone you have someone on your Ring notifications that just maybe is trying to steal that package from your porch. I mean, there's just so much that you're trying to deal with all at one time. I get it. And I want to normalize that. You're not alone in that. In the midst of it, if there's some moments that we can become aware of what's happening around us on a bigger scale, that looks like maybe within the privacy and with the intimacy of someone you trust, whether it be a spouse or partner or a good friend, a family member, maybe it's a trained professional, someone to really understand the baggage that you bring to that school site, maybe the preconceived notions that you've had kind of cycled into you just as a result of your own experiences. What are you showing up with on a Monday morning after a school break? Because that's a piece of the equation as well. Maybe it's really taking a reflective look at the choices you're making in your lifestyle. No shame here, just saying maybe considering that could be an aspect of how you're feeling the way you're feeling. Maybe it looks like bedtimes and wake-up times, or physical activity, or how much time you're spending recreationally online. Maybe it looks like some of the self-medication, coping methods that you have, which doesn't include just illicit substances. Sometimes that looks like just avoiding by going and participating in this, particular hobby. Things can be helpful to a point, right? Until they're not. Maybe it's inventorying those, taking a reflective look. But here's a practice I want to share with you on a great TED Talk called Want to Be Happy? Be Grateful. It's by David Steindl-Rast. He's a monk, like a literal monk. He's dressed like a Jedi, and he walks around the stage. He talks probably how you would picture someone talking. That is talking about gratitude, that is talking about building in more stop signs into our lives. So I would encourage you to hit up Amazon and pick up something that's going to help you to stop, even if just for a moment, even if it's for 5 seconds, if it's for 60 seconds, that could be even better. But just to stop, and no, I don't mean buying or borrowing that stop sign in your community, but I mean hitting up Amazon and getting some colored dots. We have these that I use when we're in person for PDs, but they're about the size of like a nickel right here. Whoa, almost all of them came out here. And placing these and imagining these as stop signs. Put them on your phone, on your computer monitor, on your steering wheel, on your rearview mirror, on the cabinet there in your home. Taking a look at that, being fully present. We need to stop and really look and see what's happening, why we're feeling the way we're feeling, and then engage with what we have. We need to have practices to become aware, because a present mind is a happy mind. Conversely, a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. All right. B is balance. You are likely, because you're here listening to this and watching this, one or the other or both, you are incredible at what you do, but you are not just your job. It is okay to fully experience all 33,000 plus of the human emotions. It is healthy for you to maintain clear work boundaries. Yes, there's times when the phone or the email needs to be on, throughout the night or over the weekend, but for the most part, it's going to help you to show up to that school site, to show up to that district office in a healthier way. If you can have times or seasons when you are unreachable. I'm not trying to go above whatever, the person that you report to says, but having clear and healthy boundaries there and guarding against the identity of that you are your job. You're more than just that. The last C, and here's kind of the crescendo connection. We need other people. There was a study done out of Harvard that took 700 at the time. It was in the during the Great Depression, so it was just men, young men at the time. They didn't include women, and they took half of those. And I'm going to kind of unshare just to kind of tell this story. So we took about 700 men, split them up into two camps. Half of those were sophomores at Harvard College, which now you're familiar with, maybe Harvard University. Half of those were from the slums of Boston, didn't have running water in many of their homes. They followed them now. It's 4 generations, 80 plus years in existence. Check it out. It's the Harvard Study of Adult Development. And they asked this question: what makes for a happy and healthy life? What is it? Is it the amount of money you have? Is it marital status? Is it kids? Is it where you grew up? Is it education? Is it how many, on and on and on. And what they established in this 80 plus year study is the number one indicator on a happy and healthy life, to mitigate chronic diseases, to increase our lifespan, to really get the richness out of what this human experience has to offer, is the depth and breadth of our relationships. The depth and breadth of our relationships. Connecting with others, and we saw what happens when we don't do that, right? During these past few years, is we weren't able to connect in the ways that we can normally connect. And so I have just a couple of resources to share with you here to really get the full scope of this. I would highly recommend, highly, Johann Hari's book called Lost Connections. Lost Connections. His latest book is called Stolen Focus. But the one before that, Lost Connections, I feel is just so relevant and pertinent to this conversation, as well as the global conversation that's happening around connecting with others. The byline is Why You're Depressed and How to Find Hope. I would understand if you want to get the Audible copy and not the e-reader, on a Kindle or something, and not the paper one. But it isn't just about, hey, if you're depressed. This really speaks to the importance and the impact that connecting with others in meaningful ways can have as he takes a journey around the world. His TED Talk has been viewed millions of times, and I would check this out, Lost Connections by Johann Hari. And then next, a great pairing with that is the current U.S. Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy. His book Together, it came out in the pandemic, and the byline here is The Healing Power of Human Connections in a Sometimes Lonely World. Surgeon General Murthy has 2 initiatives that he's focused on during his term, as we have a chance to work with them in some of the initiatives that we have. It is on youth mental health and the loneliness pandemic. At a national level, this conversation is happening on the healing power and the impact of connection. So please, I would really encourage you to check Vivek Murthy's Together, Johann Hari's Lost Connections. Check those out. And finally, a fun one if you're like, I'm not much of a reader, or maybe, hey, I just got done with my program. Last resource, then we're going to turn it over to Jennifer for some questions. And that is, this is my post-it to remind me, there has been clinical research done over the past 20 plus years on the impact cognitively, emotionally, all the positive mental health impacts that doing puzzles, that completing puzzles with others can have, as it uses different areas of our brain than what happens in our work, that you bond with others, that you have a shared ordeal, that you're focused on a goal. There's plenty of papers to look at that shows this. I would encourage you, if you're an educator, if you have a stake in a break room or a teacher's lounge, there at the facility where you are meeting with your staff, to get a couple puzzles, just put them on the table and watch it happen, just like popcorn. You never ask who wants popcorn when people come over, right? You just put out a bowl of popcorn, and then 3 minutes, it's gone. Because it's just there, so you have to do it. Same thing with puzzles. Get a 500, get a 1,000, put it there on the table. It'll be worth it, and watch the impact it can have on the relationships, on doing something together, and the mental health impacts that it can have. Puzzles, I know it sounds wild, but even from a clinical perspective, it is effective, positive mental health, and more than self is needed, maybe even relationships and puzzles. That's the byline for the talk. Jennifer, I'm going to hand it over to you. Try my best here to drag this icon to here.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Jeremiah. So great. I love all the tips and the books, and it does help to have some of those things in your back pocket. I didn't know that the Surgeon General's book, the Together book, was out. That sounds so fascinating. So I'm just looking through our chat box to see if we have any questions, and I don't see any in here that we didn't answer, just kind of more general questions. I wanted to uh, shout out to Andrea, whose superpower is organization. I really wish that was mine. Absolutely. It wasn't in the list, but I wish it was on my list because I need that. So many people said relationship skills. I'm just so floored by that, but also not surprised. So,
Yes.
are there any last things you want to say about the ABCs or anything else before I switch over to some more resources and then close us out today?
I think I would just double down on what you said about Melanie's comment, and that is instead of just going on your device right now,
Hmm.
maybe part of just the time with yourself to drive to a bookstore. I would advocate for a locally owned bookstore and to ask if they can order one of these books.
Hmm.
And Alex, could you please put in the chat the titles for this? And I'm going to just hand these right over here.
Yeah, that would be
There we
great.
go. It's
You could
behind the scenes.
even, as you're talking to that local bookstore seller, you could actually, have a connection with them, and then you're
Yes,
building more connections. You never know.
yes, yes, you got it. And I think just the last thing that I would clarify is this by no means is any type of any I'm not advocating for those that really enjoy our alone time or those that maybe are like, hey, I'm around students or families or teams
True.
for 9.5 hours. I don't have that totally get it, totally understood. Maybe this is a matter of connecting with yourself and your values, which is a whole nother talk that we could talk about. But having just that healing time for you, it is not selfish. It is not selfish. It is something that is taking care of yourself and taking care, even to show up as your best self to others. But if you can, I would advocate for those hours of happiness on Fridays with your team. I'll keep it family friendly. Even if it happens through FaceTime or a phone call, using that phone app on your phone that maybe rarely gets used
Yeah.
can be really impactful. But really hope it was helpful in just understanding just the positive impact of relationships that we can have with those that we know really well or those that are just there in the community that have owned a bookstore with their family for any number of years.
It's true. I have one of those that I can walk to. So
There
I'm
you
gonna
go.
take your advice.
Awesome.
Oh, well, this is great. And you all will get all those slides in your follow-up. So if it was a little fast and furious, I know we always try to pack in so much. I've got a few more things to pack in before I let you go. Some resources from Committee for Children, some free resources and connections that you might be able to make. So let me get our PowerPoint again. Thank you so much, Jeremy. That was very, very helpful. So
Very
let
welcome.
me open this and then I'll need to just navigate to my other slide. Let's move into some of the resources from Committee for Children I wanted to highlight for all of you. If you haven't seen them yet, we do every winter, we have a winter well-being video series, a way to take good care of yourself, joining psychologists and experts, social, emotional, and well-being in this year's video series. They're just short little videos, really intended for educators, but families, anyone could really benefit from the tips. The first one was how to meet your baseline needs and build resilience. The second one was healthy ways to unwind. And the last video, I'm going to keep you hanging, is coming out on January 15th, which is just a few days away. So you can go to cfchildren.org, resources, winter well-being. That URL is there. I also wanted to point to you the Committee for Children blog, if you've never seen that. I know we do have a lot of folks joining us today who are probably pretty familiar with us in general, but Community for Children blog might not be on your list. And there's a variety of really relevant topics from our experts and researchers for any role that you might be in. So there's some recent posts that might be of interest, including kind of an unpacking of the healthy ways to unplug and unwind, and our other wellness or well-being videos. We've got a few other topics there I think you would very much be interested in. So cfchildren.org/blog for that one. Also, for those of you who are second step folks, or you want to be, or you're going to be in the future perhaps, one of the best things that we can offer honestly is our Facebook group of educators doing this work. This is phenomenal. We have over 10,000 I think now, teachers, counselors, principals. Everyone in this group is just so thoughtful and meaningful about sharing their resources, asking good questions. So we would love for you to join the conversation. There's that URL there. I'm sorry, the QR code there. And then webinars. This is my specialty. I get to do the work around developing webinars and working with wonderful guest speakers like Jeremiah and organizations like Wellness Together. So please join us for our monthly webinars. We have our regular second step program overviews where you can get really into the weeds a bit more and see what's inside the programs for early learning to grade 8. We also have special topics of people in the field, just like Jeremiah and others, coming up. We also have a district leader series we're launching for January to June that will be offering panel discussions with district leaders from across the U.S. about relevant topics. So I'm excited. Our first one is January 31st, so I hope you'll sign up and register for that one. And my very last final thoughts is just to reiterate, I think I wrote this slide before hearing Jeremiah's talk, and I love that he said this too. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. I think we just have so much guilt built into our world that it's hard to not think that way. So it's a conscious effort to try to tell yourself the story that will lead to better care. So building social emotional competence in yourself and your students can help. If your students have those social emotional competencies, they're building them, they're using them, that makes your classrooms far more calm and easier for learning to happen and easier for you to keep from, screaming in your head, like I was talking about earlier. And then just practicing those strategies a little at a time. In our SEL for Adults program that we have, we talk a lot about doing those small routines that can make lasting change. So that really spoke to me too. Jeremiah said, start small, right? And then ask for help, seek out resources. You deserve it. I also heard you say that too. So you deserve it. We all deserve it. That's something I have to tell myself too, because you really matter. So I'm actually going to leave you with a very short video that's called You Matter, actually. And this is an example from our SEL for Adults program of a routine that schools can do to kind of help with connection and also with helping people to feel seen and welcome and a part of a community and to have those connections with each other. So let me load that video up really quickly.
For those of you who know Nick Regas, he's had 3 different positions at our school and has really found his niche in room 202 as he's getting his credential in teaching and his master's. So Nick, thank you so much for everything you do for us and the students. You matter. Go team!
Each year we have a theme. Our theme last year was You Are Beautiful, and this year we wanted to translate it a little bit deeper to say You Matter. And we wanted all our students walking into the building know that they matter. We wanted to share that and push it very clearly. As we translate it from students, the big component is our teachers need to know that they matter and that we matter for each other and that we connect.
A You Matter moment is an opportunity for coworkers and peers to spotlight one another. We're dealing with a lot of things. We're dealing with teenagers trying to learn and dealing with their emotions and dramas, and we're dealing with our own as just being adults in this world, and it's neat to have an opportunity to acknowledge one another and tell one another that you matter to me and I'm here to work with you and learn and grow with you.
The person that I want to give the shirt to today is someone that I've been able to count on for the past year. He's someone I can go to if I need support in the classroom, any advice on lessons, if I need music recommendations or book suggestions or where to find the ripest fruit or just a joke. And this is a sentiment I know that's shared with colleagues and students because his classroom is always full of people that want to learn from him and learn with him. So Brian Dale, you matter.
To be able to see someone at a vulnerable state like that and they're expressing something that is positive, they're spotlighting you and saying that you matter to me, and it means a lot. And by the time you're walking across the room in front of 50 or so odd people and you get to that person who celebrated you, it's an embrace of, here we are, I'm here along with you, and you matter to me at this moment.
All these little highlights that we do makes me feel at ease with where I'm at from hearing their stories and being able to have even the smallest conversation. I feel like I can connect with them, and I hope they feel the same way. And that helps me improve myself professionally. That will transfer to the students because when they see how the staff works together and they see us out in the hallways or at lunch or even before school, that carries over into how they approach us and how they can approach each other, and it's a lot more collaborative.
It's been a little bit harder to have that deeper connection where we used to have in our morning meeting, where someone could physically hand somebody something and look them in the eyes and say something. As we continue to make sure that we have that connection, once a week, one staff member is spotlighted about something they've done successfully or something that they've done within the classroom or personal. We also have What's New Wednesdays, where we spotlight something new about a staff member that you might have missed during COVID. So we get to, again, spotlight that throughout the week with our staff. And then what we've done too is we sent home a stack of cards for our teachers to be able to still write cards to each other or cards to students. And we just asked them to drop them off at the school and we mail them out for them so they can still have that experience. Teachers reach out to me. It's something they want to share to the staff. They reach out to me, write me a little letter and give me a photo. We had a staff member have a child with the What's New Wednesday. We had to post the photo of their child. One of our staff members graduated with their master's degree, got to spotlight their master's degree through What's New Wednesday. And it's just another time to have another connection and a little fun with each other.
Okay, I hope that was helpful. I know that those little routines can really make a big difference in how you feel when you come to work. I know friendships at work are really so much more important than I think I even gave them credit for until we were remote and realized that those friendships are so important. So that was a great routine. I think that fits right in with our topic. I hope you try it. Because you all matter. So any last thoughts from you, Jeremiah, as they say goodbye? I'm so happy that you were here. This was just a lot of fun, and I appreciate your expertise, and the things that you had to share were really incredible.
I'm so happy as well. Thank you again for the invitation, and just all the best to every leader that is here today or is here on the recording. And thank you for the work you are doing. It is really making a difference, and it may not seem like it in the midst of this, but I hope that you know that, and just really appreciative to all educators and school community leaders that are there, and thanks again.
Okay, everyone. Well, thank you. We're 1 minute over. We did a good job, Jeremiah. I appreciate you. I hope you'll join us for another webinar in the future. I really hope this was helpful for all of you. The work that you're doing is so important, and it means the world to us. So I hope we'll see you on a webinar again in the future. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.